Welcome to another Watertrek 360. Today we're doing a follow-up review of the Divevolk SeaTouch 4 Max underwater housing for smartphones, in particular the iPhone 13 Pro. Let's see how it does in the real world. Even though I let it sit in a 5-gallon bucket for a while, I was still leery about taking my phone on the first dive, a 75-foot wreck dive. I dove with it, but I left the housing membrane on with some rubber bands so to make sure it didn't fall off while I was diving, and then I inserted the storage sleeve wrapped in toilet paper into the housing. If the toilet paper was wet, then I knew it was compromised. This is a cheap little trick to check out camera housings if you want to determine their true max depth capabilities without damaging your camera. I've done this before and it works pretty well. Good news, there was no leak, and I used it on the second shallower dive of the day at 30 feet. My challenges here, though, were similar to what I described in the initial review. You can check that out in links at the end of the video. Touch receptiveness was still the issue for me. I did one dive with a stick-on screen protector to see if that would really make a difference, and I took it off for subsequent dives, but there really seemed to be no difference with the screen protector on or not. I had difficulty getting the phone to respond consistently. It seemed to do better with lateral swipes, like changing from photo to video, etc., than it did with getting the phone to respond to on and off for video, cinematic, or even photo. I tried tapping quickly, I pressed longer, I tried aiming for the top of the recording dot, then the lower part of the recording dot. Sometimes it worked on the first hit, other times it took several tries. As you can see in this video clip, which was taken on day 2 when I had removed the screen protectors, I was still having challenges getting it to go. And since I was shooting videography, once I got it on, I just left it. As a videographer, when I want to capture something like a moving fish or some other short-term event, I need the tool to respond quickly. As you see in these still photos, by the time I got it to go, the fish were gone. So let's talk about the real reason I got the SeaTouch in the first place, the iPhone 13. I'm pretty impressed with the iPhone 13 Pro. It's better than I anticipated. I tried several options. I shot in slow-mo, like you're seeing here. I shot in cinematic mode and took some still shots, but mostly video. I was set at 4K with 30 frames per second. Next time I will try 4K at 60 FPS. That said, the difference between 30 and 60 is significant from a file size standpoint, but we'll go into that in the next video. Folks have asked me how I set my rig up. In this shot you'll see that I've got a tripod, which I have a GoPro Hero 9, above that a few strobes, and then at the top of the pole I have an Insta1 360R to capture the 360 footage. Going forward, I'm going to have to figure out a way that I can attach the iPhone to this if I choose to use that in a 3-camera setting like I did this day. It's a bit challenging to do all 3, but we'll find a way. Another challenge for me is the filter bracket. I wish it was a bit longer and had a channeled groove to keep it from falling apart, so when it's loosened you can just attach it with one move. Setting this up on the boat was nerve-wracking, and I didn't want any pieces slipping or falling while the boat was rocking between dives. Video doesn't do this guy justice. He's about a 3.5-foot long CUDA, but always fun to see. So, my opinion of the Divevolk SeaTouch housing after the first use? Well, for me, the jury is still out. I like the fact that it's simple and easy, no software to maintain. The housing's a basic container, no batteries, easy to clean, easy to hold. The lens filter holder needs some rework to reduce the risk of losing pieces, unless it's set up in advance. And the membrane protector needs modification, so while on the boat, risk of it getting damaged is lessened.
Luckily for me, on the day 1, there were no other cameras on the boat. On day 2, there were many. I removed it after each dive from the bucket and kept it with my gear. I soaked it back at the hotel for an hour to make sure the salt was gone. While the membrane is the tool's biggest benefit, it's the clearest detractor. When it was responding well, it's cool to be able to switch between the many picture modes without buttons. My frustration was in the randomness of when it would or wouldn't work. This, besides the possibility of membrane fatigue or puncture, is my biggest concern, as you will see in a moment. I didn't notice this until I got home, but now I see a floating bubble in the membrane that I hadn't seen before. I was worried I had a defective housing, and getting a bubble in the membrane after only 4 dives put the 100,000 touch life in question. I contacted Divevolk. The response I got was as follows. About the bubble, it won't affect your operation and waterproofing of the housing. The bubble could be appearing under certain pressure, especially under low pressure, such as on a plane, or in a high altitude area, or after operation in diving. The bubble is from air dissolved into liquid during the production. In some situations, it could dissolve again back into the liquid if you go to a low altitude area, so you don't need to worry about the quality and operation. I am in a low altitude area. I only live 100 feet or so above sea level. It's been a week, but only 5 days after flying. I will monitor this and add any updates to this post if anything changes. Regardless of this assurance from Divevolk, I will repeat the toilet paper test before using it with my iPhone. Unfortunately, this has only heightened my uncertainty about the membrane durability. Bubbles notwithstanding, I think this housing suits casual shallow water divers and snorkelers, where the risk of compromise is lessened. The iPhone 13 is said to survive to a depth of 18 feet. Regardless, salt water kills electronics, and I don't want to find out. I'm also not sure about its touch receptiveness, nor its durability in use on deeper dives of say 120 feet plus, regardless of the depth rating of 180 feet, or cold water dives, as gloves are not an option with the membrane. My rating of the SeaTouch may change if the membrane bubble does prove to be innocuous and I'm able to address the responsiveness issue. I have some ideas on how to improve that and will report back next month after diving in the Caribbean. I'm not trying to be overly harsh with Divevolk. The 3 rating is based on confidence in the membrane survivability and its random unresponsiveness. As a longtime wreck diver, durability is a major component in all my gear. As for the iPhone 13 Pro, outlook is good. Well, that concludes the second review of the Divevolk SeaTouch 4 Max underwater housing in use with the iPhone 13 Pro. Do subscribe to the channel. I will be releasing a video on the iPhone 13 Pro itself and how well it did underwater, as well as future videos in the next 3 to 4 weeks when I travel to Cayman using not only the Divevolk but the iPhone 13 as well as other cameras. This is a great technology that's only going to get better as camera phones get better and ultimately the housings. Do check out some of our other videos on the channel, and as always, until next time, go explore, get wet.